For cross-hatching, we don't need a ton of equipment. So that's what's cool and what's really awesome about it, because you can now just take a few supplies worth if you're going drawing outdoors, and then you use cross-hatching to capture whatever you're working, or whatever you're trying to draw. And the thing is, with cross-hatching, it goes quite quick, so it's ideal for working outdoors. Alright, so let me show you what I've got. I've got an 8B pencil, just a standard 8B pencil. Then I've got a 2H pencil for construction work. This is a B, but you could use a standard pencil, but I've chosen to use a mechanical pencil, and you'll see shortly why. Then there's B, just refill leads for the mechanical pencil. A standard eraser, it's unlikely we'll use it, but you never know. And then just a standard sharpener. Alright, so cross-hatching works like this. Where you'd normally, let's draw a little box over there. Where you'd normally shade by using either hard and soft pencils or more or less pressure. So let's shade this guy. So I'm going to start off by pressing hard. As I go along, I'm going to gradually add less and less pressure to the pencil. I think I'll fade him out a little bit quicker than the box that I've drawn, otherwise it's going to take too long. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Okay, so can you see what's happened? Just by using different brushes and so on, that's given us our shadings. But with cross-hatching is basically a series of lines. So let's draw another box there, and let's sort of half what we're going to do. Instead of doing cross-hatching, we do hatching. Okay, so let's hatch this guy. So what you need to do hatching is a nice sharp pencil. So what you're going to do is that's why I've specifically shown you the sharpener. You're going to keep sharpening your pencil so that you stay with a nice sharp point. So I'm going to show you a trick shortly on how I keep my pencil sharp for longer, so I don't have to keep sharpening it every 2 seconds. Alright, so let's hatch this guy. So the way you do it is because we can only use lines, you're going to use to have darker areas, you're going to make these lines closer to each other, like this. You see that? And if I want less, we just continue here. If I want to go lighter, I'm going to make the gaps between the lines larger and larger. Alright, so now let's add cross-hatching. So cross-hatching basically is just when you're using, if you've got lines in this direction, you're going to basically add lines now in the opposite direction. So cross-hatching just adds that extra element for us to have more control over our shadings. Can you see that? You've now instantly got a better tonal value gradient across the length. In other words, it gives me just finer control over the total values that I want. So let's take a look at something like this guy over here. So to do a fish or whatever, let's do something really simple like this background, going from dark through to sort of a mid-tone. So there you're going to have lots of hatching. So you're going to be hatching something like this. Let's say there's that side of that fish. So I'm going to add lots of hatching really close to each other because I need to get that area dark. In other words, you're barely going to see the gaps between the lines, and you can go in as many different directions as you want, as long as each one is in a different angle. See that? Okay, now to get that lighter shading, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding a leech line, so I add these lines further apart. And that's how we get our shadings. Alright, so that's the basics of crosshatching. So there's going to be tons and tons and tons of practice with this. So what I will also do is not just use one pencil. I will use, that's why I've got a B and a 6B pencil or an 8B pencil. The idea being that I can do most of my hatching with this guy, and I've chosen a mechanical pencil for the obvious reason. Remember, we said we need a sharp point. So the mechanical pencil stays sharp all the time. And then with our normal shading there, we'd press harder and softer to get tonal values. Just the same with this, we can also press harder and softer with our cross-hatching. So let's go press harder over here, and then we press a little bit softer and further apart, hard and close to each other, softer and further apart, and even softer and further apart. And that's how we're able to get even more control, look at that, out of our cross-hatching. So most of the time I'm going to use my B pencil, because look at that, it gives me some beautiful thin cross-hatching. So let's fill that up a little bit more. And then right at the end for my darks, let's say for example I need this side here to be dark. Now I can come back in with my 8B and press hard to get a nice dark shading there. And with this guy I can press soft and further apart to get really nice soft shadings. So now when I am cross-hatching like this, in theory what you're supposed to do is use these lines perfectly parallel to each other, or at least at the same angle. Yeah, parallel to each other, but you will have obviously now your gaps closer and further apart. But what I tend to do is when I'm working, I like my cross-hatching drawings to be nice and loose and free kind of style. So you'll find that instead of doing individual lines like this, I would tend to more scribble. Let me zoom in on that little piece. In other words, I'm doing my parallel lines without actually lifting up the pencil, as opposed to doing that. And I find by doing that it just gives me a looser effect, but needless to say that is now theoretically the perfect way of doing it. But yeah, maybe I'm just lazy. Who knows? Alright, so let's zoom way out and let's get going. Lots and lots of fish practice here today. So I have drawn out my lines over here. Just the outlines of the fish, just so that I can get a feel for what goes where. And let's start with a fish, and then we go along, and then we'll squeeze in our background afterwards. So obviously we can't really see those lines, so let's just do that. Alrighty, so that should be great. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to I'm going to start with just getting the darks around the edges, just getting them established. So like I can see he's dark around here. Like that, and then over here it is dark, but it's not dark on the fish, it's dark off the fish, so that little cast shadow ends before the end of the fish's face. So his face ends there, but the shadow actually ends there, in sort of that kind of a shape. So for now, I'm just going to put in a few hatches. Are they dark enough? Are they all correct? No, not really. I'm just trying to get a feel for what's going on here. In other words, this guy is darker around this area here. Let's see, there's I'll just put a paper over that drawing work over there, or it might disappear on me. Small amount of dark over there. And there's the fin. Okay, so let's take a look. Overall, we've got this nice dark area over there. And there's his mouth. Seems to be a little dark around the eye. There's that over there. And there's just a little bit of a line over there. Alright, so let's take a look. Where are the real light spots? There's a light spot running along there. Everything else has sort of got some color to it. So we can take this whole fish, except over there, and just start adding some very light hatching. Over this fish like that, and here is darker over here. Okay, now we've got different little tonal values and shadings and things sort of along the length. So he's dark over there, there's light. There's some total value there, and there's also sort of a little line over there. So I'm not pressing hard at all. Here's a lovely little dark area over there. Alright, now let's go over to the 8B and we start adding some of the darker bits in. So I'm going to start at the darkest darks, but I'm still not pressing hard. So I'm using short little sharp hatching strokes and close to each other. So let's establish that little edge over there so that we know where he goes. And it seems like all along the edge over here. This guy's dark, but you see it's not long. It's just a short little area. Here's a few little marks and things. Let's get some hatching in there. Alright, so take a look at that mark over there. As I'm hatching, I'm turning this pencil. So I want you to, as I'm hatching, just keep watching my finger and looking out for that little mark to see how the pencil is turning. Eventually you're going to start doing those little turning motion automatically. You're not even going to realize that you're doing it anymore. It just comes without thinking. Alright, so I think here, let's just establish this dark, that shadow, cast shadow off the fish, because that's going to help lift the fish up. So by darkening this with nice dark strokes and close hatches, we're going to lift up the fish and it's going to give us the contrast that we need to help us judge the rest of the tonal values as well. So the shadow is dark right up against the fish and then it quickly fades away. I'm not going to do it perfectly, it's just to get ourselves a little bit of contrast going over there and to define the edge of the fish. Let's see, here sort of like a little dent in the fish, so the face is a little bit darker, then you got that little lighter rim there. It's not quite by the gill, hey? I think the gill sits over this area over here. So I'm not sure why it does that, but it does, so I'm going to put it in. Here around the eye, really nice darks over there. And even there's actually a line around the eye. And the pupil, of course, he's got to go pitch black, really dark. Okay, here's a fin. And it's also got some tonal value, so let's do some close hatches over there. And there we've got that really bright highlight piece. So we can't work there, but we can lay down tonal value around it. Even this whole area here is not bright. He seems to have a little, what would you call it, wrinkles in his skin over there. So we'll hatch in those little wrinkles. Close hatches inside the wrinkle and then gradually longer ones on the outside. And that will give us that shading over there. Here on the edge of the fish, I like to get that rounding effect. So dark on the edge of the fish and then lighter going in. So close hatches next to each other, right on the edge, and then gradually the hatches further apart to get the shading. So notice all the different directions that I'm using. And then as I spot a detail, I try and put it in. Let's just lift out that edge of that gill over there. It seems to cast a little, or actually not cast, it actually catches a little highlight. Even this whole piece of the face here, can you see that? If you compare with a bright little reflection on the fish, is not that bright. So we're going to have to lay tonal value over the whole area, even more than what we did before. And you can add hatches in the according to the contour of the fish as well. That's also 100% acceptable. They don't have to be straight like we are using most of the time. Your hatches can also follow the contour of the fish. Okay, let's define that edge over there. Also a quick little, almost a quick shading just to complete that rounding on that side over there. Right, now we can start darkening up. So I am now going to start pressing a little bit harder. Remember, it's easy for you to go darker. It's not easy to go lighter. So gradually build up your shadings using the hatching. Don't rush it. That's why you see me gradually building up little bit by little bit. So sometimes it looks like, but I'm doing the same area twice. Yes, sometimes I'm doing it 3-4 times. And that's just for me to gradually build up those tonal values until I've got them just right across the entire fish. Like here, we can go a bit darker. So what's that? This is probably the fourth time I've worked over here. Who would have thought? Yeah, I think the top of the fish is starting to look beautifully round now. There seems to be a little, almost a line where that highlight stops. So let's work that line in a little bit more. It's just got to be careful. You can't touch that highlight area anymore. It's got to stay nice, pure white paper to make sure that we don't lose this lovely highlight. So you'll probably find, I know it works like that with me, your first fish or whatever you do when you start cross-hatching, it tends to take a long time because you have to almost program your brain to think in hatching instead of normal shading like you normally do when you're drawing pencil. So especially with the first one, really take your time. Just get your head around, get your brain to compute what it needs to do. After that, you'll find that the subsequent fish or objects or whatever you're drawing will gradually go quicker and quicker and quicker. Okay, so now what you want to do is just stand back and just check your tonal values. Make sure you're happy with all the different darknesses and so on. At this point, I think I'm pretty happy. I'm sure we can call it a day. Obviously, you can fiddle a lot, but it's supposed to be a nice, loose feeling sketch. It mustn't look like you've labored here and went and tried to get every last little detail in. That was not the idea. With a guy like this, you're trying to get that loose, oh, I did it in 5 minutes effect. Alrighty, so I hope you enjoyed that class just as much as I did. I'll see you next time. So if you enjoyed this lesson, please like the video and comment below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more lessons like this.